Hello, my dear friends. Today, I want to tell you the amazing story of a man who became one of the richest and most respected investors in history. A man who proved that success is not always about being the smartest person in the room. Sometimes success comes from patience. Sometimes it comes from discipline. And sometimes it comes from making thousands of small good decisions over a very long period of time. This is the story of Warren Buffett. Today, people know him as the Oracle of Omaha. He is one of the wealthiest people in the world. His investment company is worth hundreds of billions of dollars. World leaders seek his advice. Business owners admire him. Investors study his words. But Warren Buffett was not born rich. He was not born with a giant business empire. Long before the world knew his name, he was simply a curious boy who loved numbers and dreamed of building something meaningful. Let us travel back to the beginning of his remarkable journey. Warren Edward Buffett was born on August 30th, 1930, in Omaha, Nebraska. He entered the world during one of the most difficult periods in American history. The Great Depression had begun. Millions of people had lost jobs, businesses were failing, families struggled to survive, money was scarce, fear was everywhere. Although Warren was too young to understand these problems fully, growing up during this period shaped the way he viewed money and business. His father, Howard Buffett, was a stockbroker and later became a member of the United States Congress. His mother, Layla Buffett, managed the household. The family was hardworking and disciplined. They were not wealthy, but they valued education, responsibility, and honesty. These values would stay with Warren throughout his life. Many children enjoy toys, others enjoy sports. Warren enjoyed numbers. From a very young age, he became fascinated by money. He wanted to understand how businesses worked. He wanted to understand why some people became successful, while others struggled. Even as a child, he constantly looked for opportunities to earn money. One day, he bought packs of chewing gum and sold individual pieces for profit. Another time, he sold bottles of Coca-Cola door to door. Most children would spend their free time playing games. Warren spent much of his time thinking about business opportunities. His family quickly realized that he was different. He had an unusual curiosity about money and investing. At an age when many children barely understood basic arithmetic, Warren was already studying stocks. He spent time reading financial information. He followed companies. He learned how businesses earned money. At only 11 years old, Warren made his first stock purchase. He bought shares of a company called Cities Service. The stock price soon fell. Like many beginner investors, he became nervous. Eventually, the stock recovered slightly, and he sold it for a small profit. But shortly afterward, the stock price rose much higher. This experience taught him an important lesson. Patience matters. Many investors fail because they become emotional. Young Warren learned that successful investing often requires waiting. This lesson would shape his future career. As Warren entered his teenage years, his entrepreneurial spirit became even stronger. He delivered newspapers, not one route, several routes. Every morning, while many teenagers were sleeping, Warren was working. He tracked his earnings carefully. He recorded expenses. He measured profits. He treated his newspaper business like a real company. By the age of 14, he had saved thousands of dollars. This was an extraordinary achievement for a teenager during that time. Instead of spending all his money, Warren continued saving and investing. At 14 years old, he even purchased farmland. The land was rented to farmers, creating income. This was one of his earliest examples of investing, rather than simply spending. Warren quickly discovered that knowledge could be more valuable than money. Money could be lost. Knowledge could stay with you forever. So he became a passionate reader. He read books about business. He read books about investing. He read newspapers. He studied successful companies. Sometimes he spent hours reading while others were doing something else. Over time, this habit became one of the most important parts of his life. Years later, people would ask Warren Buffett how he learned so much. His answer was simple: read. Read every day. Read constantly. His commitment to learning became one of his greatest strengths. After high school, Warren wanted to continue learning about business and investing. He attended the University of Nebraska. Even during college, his focus remained different from many other students. While some students focused mainly on social activities, Warren continued studying investments. He remained fascinated by the stock market. He remained fascinated by business, and he continued looking for opportunities. Eventually, he learned about a famous investor named Benjamin Graham. This discovery would change his life. Benjamin Graham was one of the most respected investors of his era. He had developed a philosophy known as value investing. The idea was simple: buy excellent businesses when they are available at reasonable prices. Focus on long-term value rather than short-term excitement. Avoid emotional decisions. Think carefully, act rationally. These ideas immediately attracted Warren. He read Graham's famous book, The Intelligent Investor. The book became one of the most important influences in his life. Many years later, Warren would still describe it as one of the greatest investing books ever written. After finishing college, Warren applied to Harvard Business School. He hoped to continue his education there. But something unexpected happened. Harvard rejected him. For many people, this would have been devastating. They might have viewed the rejection as a sign to give up. Warren reacted differently. Instead of focusing on disappointment, he looked for another opportunity. He learned that Benjamin Graham taught at Columbia Business School. Immediately, he applied. And this decision would change his future forever. At Columbia, Warren finally had the opportunity to study directly under Benjamin Graham. For him, it was a dream come true. He absorbed every lesson, every idea, every principle. He studied investing intensely. His professors quickly noticed his talent and dedication. Warren was not interested in becoming rich overnight. He wanted to understand investing deeply. He wanted knowledge that would last a lifetime. And at Columbia, he found exactly what he was looking for. By the time Warren Buffett completed his studies, several important pieces were already in place. He had developed discipline. He had developed patience. He had learned the importance of reading and continuous learning. He had discovered the principles of value investing, and he had built a mindset focused on long-term success rather than short-term rewards. What nobody knew at that time was that these lessons would eventually help him build one of the greatest investing careers in history. The boy who sold chewing gum and Coca-Cola door to door was preparing for a future far bigger than anyone could imagine. When Warren Buffett graduated from Columbia University, he carried something far more valuable than money. He carried knowledge. He had learned from Benjamin Graham, one of the greatest investors of his time. Now Warren wanted to put those lessons into practice. But the beginning was not easy. After completing his studies, Warren hoped to work directly for Benjamin Graham. At first, Graham refused. Warren was disappointed, but he did not give up. Instead, he returned to Omaha and worked as a stockbroker. During this period, he continued reading, studying companies, and searching for investment opportunities. Most people spent their evenings relaxing. Warren spent his evenings analyzing businesses. He read annual reports. He studied balance sheets. He searched for companies that were selling below their true value. His passion for investing continued growing. Eventually, Benjamin Graham changed his mind and offered Warren a position at his investment company in New York. For Warren, it was a dream come true. He moved to New York and began working directly with the man who had inspired him for years. Every day became an education. He learned how professional investors thought. He learned how to evaluate businesses. And he learned how to remain calm when markets became emotional. These years became some of the most important in his career. After several successful years working with Graham, Warren faced an important decision. He could remain in New York, or he could return home. In 1956, he chose to return to Omaha. At that time, he was only 25 years old. Most people his age were still trying to discover their future. Warren already knew what he wanted. He wanted to build an investment partnership. He wanted to manage money using the principles he had learned from Benjamin Graham. And that is exactly what he did. With a small group of family members and friends, Warren created his first investment partnership. The amount of money was modest. Nothing about the partnership looked extraordinary at the beginning. But Warren had confidence in his approach. He remained disciplined. He remained patient. And slowly, the partnership began producing impressive results. Year after year, Warren's partnership outperformed the market. Investors started paying attention. People noticed that this young man from Omaha seemed to have a remarkable ability to identify undervalued businesses. His reputation grew steadily, not because he made bold predictions, not because he appeared on television, but because his results spoke for themselves. While others chased trends, Warren focused on value. While others became emotional, Warren stayed calm. Over time, more investors wanted him to manage their money. The partnership continued growing, and so did Warren's confidence. During the early 1960s, Warren discovered a struggling textile company called Berkshire Hathaway. At the time, the company was far from impressive. It operated textile mills that were facing serious challenges. Many investors ignored it completely, but Warren saw something others did not. The company's shares were selling at a price that he believed was lower than their true value. So, he started buying stock. At first, he viewed Berkshire Hathaway simply as an investment opportunity. He did not plan to build an empire. He simply believed the stock was undervalued. But events unfolded differently. As Warren continued purchasing shares, he eventually gained control of the company. What began as a small investment slowly became something much larger. Years later, Berkshire Hathaway would become one of the most valuable companies in the world. But at that moment, nobody could see the future. Not even Warren himself. As time passed, Warren's thinking began evolving. Benjamin Graham had taught him how to buy undervalued businesses. But another important influence entered his life. A businessman named Charlie Munger. Charlie Munger would eventually become Warren's closest business partner and friend. Munger encouraged Warren to think differently. Instead of buying average businesses at cheap prices, why not buy excellent businesses at fair prices? This idea changed Warren's investment philosophy forever. He began focusing more on quality, strong companies, strong management teams, strong competitive advantages, businesses capable of growing for decades. This shift would produce extraordinary results. One characteristic separated Warren Buffett from many investors: patience. He was willing to wait. Days, months, years, sometimes even decades. In a world where many people wanted quick profits, Warren focused on the long term. If he found an excellent company, he preferred holding it for many years. This approach allowed his investments to grow through the power of compounding. Small gains became larger gains. Larger gains became enormous gains. And over time, patience became one of his greatest advantages. While Warren's business career expanded, his personal life was also changing. In 1952, he married Susan Thompson. Susan became an important part of his life. Together, they had 3 children. Their names were Susie, Howard, and Peter. Warren deeply loved his family. However, balancing family life and an intense business career was not always easy. Much of his attention remained focused on investing and business. He spent countless hours reading and analyzing companies. Even as his wealth increased, many aspects of his lifestyle remained surprisingly simple. He continued living in the same Omaha house he purchased in 1958. While many wealthy individuals moved into mansions, Warren remained comfortable in a modest home. This became one of the most famous aspects of his personality. Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, Berkshire Hathaway expanded rapidly. The company purchased businesses across many industries: insurance companies, consumer products, retail businesses, media companies, and many others. Warren carefully selected investments. He preferred businesses that were easy to understand, businesses with strong brands, businesses that customers trusted. This strategy worked remarkably well. As Berkshire grew, Warren's reputation grew alongside it. Investors around the world began studying his decisions. Journalists wanted interviews. Business leaders wanted advice. The boy who once sold Coca-Cola door to door had become one of the most respected investors in America. One of Warren's most famous investments came in 1988. He purchased a large stake in Coca-Cola. Many people already knew the company. Its products were sold around the world. But Warren believed the company possessed extraordinary long-term potential. He understood the strength of its brand. He understood customer loyalty. And he understood the value of a business that millions of people enjoyed every day. The investment became one of the greatest successes in Berkshire Hathaway's history. Years later, it generated billions of dollars in profits. No discussion of Warren Buffett would be complete without mentioning Charlie Munger. For decades, the 2 men worked together. Their personalities were different, but their thinking often aligned. They challenged each other's ideas. They discussed opportunities, and they helped Berkshire Hathaway grow into a global powerhouse. Their partnership became one of the most successful business relationships in modern history. Warren often credited Charlie for helping him become a better investor and thinker. By the end of the 20th century, Warren Buffett had achieved something extraordinary. He was no longer simply a successful investor. He had become a business legend. Berkshire Hathaway had grown into an enormous company. His wealth had increased dramatically, and investors around the world followed his every move. Yet despite all the success, Warren remained remarkably grounded. He continued reading every day. He continued living in Omaha. And he continued focusing on long-term thinking rather than short-term excitement. The most remarkable chapters of his story, however, were still ahead, because wealth alone would not define his legacy. His generosity, wisdom, and influence would eventually become just as important as his financial success. By the beginning of the 21st century, Warren Buffett had already achieved more than most people could imagine. He had built Berkshire Hathaway into one of the most successful companies in the world. His investments had created enormous wealth. His reputation had spread far beyond the United States. People called him the Oracle of Omaha. Investors studied his words. Business leaders admired his judgment. Journalists followed his decisions closely. Yet something interesting happened as Warren became wealthier. His lifestyle changed very little. Many billionaires own multiple mansions. Many collect expensive cars, yachts, and luxury items. Warren Buffett chose a different path. He continued living in the same Omaha house he had purchased in 1958. The home was comfortable, but it was not a giant mansion. Visitors were often surprised by its simplicity. Even as his wealth reached tens of billions of dollars, Warren maintained habits that reflected the values he had developed as a young man. He enjoyed simple meals. He loved reading. He spent much of his day studying businesses and financial reports. His life became an example of something many people find difficult to understand. Wealth and luxury are not always the same thing. For Warren, success was never about showing people how rich he was. Success was about making good decisions over a long period of time. One question people frequently asked Warren Buffett was, "What is the secret to your success?" His answer often surprised them. Read. Read constantly. Read every day. Warren spent many hours reading newspapers, annual reports, books, and business information. He believed knowledge accumulates over time, just like money. A person who reads consistently gains understanding little by little. Years later, that understanding becomes a powerful advantage. For Warren, learning never stopped. Even after becoming one of the richest people on earth, he remained a student. This humility helped him continue growing, while many others became overconfident. Another important chapter of Warren's life began when he met Bill Gates. At first, Warren was not particularly interested in the meeting. Friends encouraged him to spend time with Gates, but Warren believed they had little in common. However, after they met, something unexpected happened. The two men became close friends. Both valued learning. Both enjoyed solving problems. Both believed in long-term thinking. Over the years, their friendship grew stronger. They spent many hours discussing business, life, philanthropy, and the future. Their friendship became one of the most famous relationships in the business world. Perhaps the most remarkable chapter of Warren Buffett's life involved what he planned to do with his wealth. Many people assume billionaires spend their lives accumulating money. Warren viewed wealth differently. He believed enormous fortunes carried responsibility. In 2006, he announced a historic decision. He planned to give away most of his wealth to charitable causes. The announcement shocked many people. At the time, the value of his donations would eventually reach tens of billions of dollars. It became one of the largest charitable commitments in human history. Most of the donations were directed toward organizations focused on health, education, and reducing poverty. For Warren, success was not only about building wealth, it was also about creating positive impact. Together with Bill Gates and Melinda Gates, Warren helped launch an initiative known as the Giving Pledge. The idea was simple. Encourage wealthy individuals to donate the majority of their fortunes to charitable causes. Many of the world's richest people joined the pledge. The movement inspired conversations about responsibility, generosity, and the role of wealth in society. Warren's participation reflected a belief he had developed over many years. Money can create opportunities, but its greatest value often comes from helping others. Throughout his long career, Warren experienced numerous economic crises, stock market crashes, recessions, financial panics, periods of uncertainty. Many investors became frightened during these moments. Some sold everything. Others made emotional decisions. Warren approached crises differently. He remained calm. He believed that fear often created opportunities. When others became pessimistic, he focused on long-term value. This mindset allowed Berkshire Hathaway to survive difficult periods and continue growing. His calm approach during financial storms became one of the characteristics that investors admired most. As the years passed, Warren Buffett became more than a successful investor. He became a symbol of patience, a symbol of discipline, a symbol of long-term thinking. Universities studied his methods. Business schools taught his principles. Young investors around the world read his annual letters to shareholders. His influence extended far beyond the stock market. People admired not only his financial success, but also his character, his honesty, his humility, his consistency. These qualities helped make him one of the most respected figures in modern business history. One of the reasons Warren's story resonates with so many people is that it is not only a story about money. It is a story about character. Throughout his life, he emphasized honesty. He emphasized integrity. He emphasized reputation. Warren often said that building a reputation takes many years, but damaging it can happen very quickly. For him, character was one of the most valuable assets a person could possess. And perhaps that is one reason his legacy extends beyond finance. People trusted him, and trust is a powerful form of wealth. As Warren entered his later years, many people expected him to slow down. But curiosity remained a central part of his personality. He continued reading. He continued learning. He continued asking questions. This lifelong curiosity kept his mind active and engaged. It also demonstrated an important truth. Learning does not have an age limit. A curious mind can continue growing throughout life. Before we end this story, let us reflect on a few lessons from Warren Buffett's remarkable life. First, success often grows slowly. Warren did not become wealthy overnight. His fortune developed through decades of patience and discipline. Second, knowledge matters. His commitment to reading and learning became one of his greatest strengths. Third, emotions can be dangerous when making important decisions. Warren succeeded because he remained calm while others became fearful. Fourth, reputation matters. Trust, honesty, and integrity helped shape his legacy. And finally, wealth has meaning when it creates positive impact. His commitment to philanthropy showed that success can be used to improve the lives of others. My dear friends, as we come to the end of Warren Buffett's story, remember this. Great success is rarely the result of one brilliant moment. More often, it is the result of thousands of small decisions made wisely over many years. Warren Buffett began as a curious boy who loved numbers. He sold chewing gum, delivered newspapers, read books obsessively, and slowly, through patience and discipline, he built one of the greatest business careers in history. But perhaps his most important legacy is not the billions of dollars he earned. Perhaps it is the example he set, an example of humility, an example of lifelong learning, an example of using success responsibly.